Damn, I wish I could do that. But obviously I can't because I don't own a guitar. Well, it would have to be an electric guitar or it wouldn't sound right. Okay, even so, I wouldn't know where to start. It's not like there's a free resource out there with thousands of beginner guitar lessons.
Hey, what's up? Marty Schwartz here, GuitarJams.com. I've got a fairly easy but really cool sounding acoustic lesson for you. Ready to spice up your playing a bit, spark some new ideas.
So according to a 1995 study by Harvard University, you can actually learn how to play the piano without ever touching one. They had one group of participants physically practice a melody while the others simply thought about it. They did this for 2 hours a day for 5 days a week and found that the group that thought about it made a significant increase in performance. Now, what does a significant increase in performance mean? Well, I have no idea because the article is behind a paywall. So today I'm going to put that to the test by building a guitar-like device that I'm going to pretend to play for 30 days to see if I can learn the Freebird solo. And you might be wondering, if you can learn how to play the guitar by just thinking about it, why would you go to the trouble of building anything at all? That's because if I didn't, the video would look like this. What is up, New Milk Nation? Today, I'm going to see if I can learn how to play the guitar just by thinking about it. Let's get into it. Alright guys, remember to like, comment, and hit the bell to be notified of my future videos. So instead, I'm going to be building a device that provides no real-time audio feedback to me, but remembers the notes I play, so you, the viewer, can watch my progress as I try to learn Freebird over the course of 30 days. But before I start building this thing, let's see what my current guitar skills are like. So it looks like we have some work to do. I'm going to start making the neck and body out of this palette I stole from a Chinese restaurant. And I wanted the dimensions to be as close as possible to the real thing, so I took some measurements with an actual guitar and ended up with a bunch of pieces of wood with pencil marks on them, which I eventually cut and sanded. Eventually I was left with this, which isn't really what I wanted, but it's good enough. With the neck and body done, it was time to start working on the strings. The whole idea is that there's going to be a string held in place at both ends, but wraps around this button, so when it gets pulled, the button gets pressed, which tells the computer I plucked the string. I found that in order for the button to be pushed in far enough to register, you'd need to pull the string really far, making it pretty hard to play, so I made the strings a lot shorter. Now that the strings were completed, it was time to add some frets to the neck. I started by making grooves to outline where the frets would be and to act as a guide as to where I'll put my sensors. And for those, I'm going to be creating some capacitive sensors, which will detect when I'm touching each fret. I originally tried to use a soda can, but it wouldn't solder well because it was made of aluminum, so I used this can made of steel instead, which worked a lot better. After flattening it out, I cut it into the shape of the frets, soldered it to some wires, and superglued it to the neck, which resulted in this mess of wires. I covered this using a bunch of tape and an old salad container to prevent me from accidentally pulling any wires out. But that was it. Now all that's left is to write some code which figures out what note I'm playing and then store it into text form so I can add sound to it later. To do that, I wrote a program in Arduino that waits for a string to be plucked and then sequentially checks each fret on that string if my finger's on it, and if it is, generates the following string of characters, where the first part is the note I played in tab form, and the second part is the time in milliseconds since I played my last note. I'll then save this text and feed it onto the next program that played a sound based on the fret, displayed it on the screen, and then waited a certain amount of time before playing the next one. Now that everything was done, it was time to get practicing. I wasn't really sure the best way to do this, so the way I'm going to practice is by playing a bit of this tab over and over, and do a little bit more once I'm somewhat confident in my abilities. I'll be doing this for 30 minutes a day for 30 days, and hopefully by the end, I'll be able to play the song on a real guitar. I got some bad news, New Milk Nation. I just started editing and I noticed that the notes that are played in my video don't seem to sync up with the notes generated by my program. After doing a bit of investigation as to why this was happening, it turns out when I keep my fingers on the frets I wasn't playing, especially when I was barring my fingers across these frets, which I do for most of the song, causes my code to malfunction. I spent hours trying to figure this out, scouring electronics forums, double checking my code, rewiring everything, and just as I was about to scrap the video, I stumbled on what seemed to be the dumbest piece of advice I've seen so far. Put a piece of tape on it. And it actually worked. The piece of tape acted as a barrier so I couldn't make a solid connection between my finger and the other frets, but it was thin enough to register so that when I pushed down on a fret with an adequate amount of force, it would register my finger on it. And this worked pretty much perfectly. However, this wouldn't have been a huge issue if I hadn't discovered it on day 29. Because my footage was basically unusable now, I had to find a way to simulate the lack of coordination and fine motor skills I had on day 1. So now that I'm a bit drunk, let's pretend I'm still on day 1. First thing I noticed was how often you play the same notes over and over, especially the notes on the 17th frets, so I started borrowing my finger across the frets while playing the rest of the song. Another thing I noticed was that practicing on the device was kind of fun, and I think that's because it doesn't actually play any sound, so instead of hearing all my mistakes and making me feel sad, my brain fills in the gaps with the actual solo of Freebird, similar to if I was playing an air guitar. Around the end of the 30 days, I was pretty confident in my abilities. I obviously knew I wouldn't be able to play the entire song flawlessly, but I seriously thought I could play the first 30 to 60 seconds at a novice level. And that didn't sound as good as I would have liked, but it wasn't completely awful. If these skills were transferred over to a real guitar, I'd consider this a success. So the next morning, I picked up a real guitar for the first time in a month, and this happened.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I was still shit. My main issues were I couldn't hold down the frets as easily as I did on the device, and where the strings on the device only registered a note when I plucked it all the way, the real strings would make a horrible noise anytime my pick even slightly touched it. Despite that, here's a little montage of me playing. So, was I able to learn the guitar without touching one? Honestly, I would say kind of. While I didn't sound as good as I hoped at the end, I did feel like I had a general sense of how to play the song, where my fingers should go and what strings I should be playing. But I think this should go without saying. I was halfway through making this video when I realized how stupid this idea was. Will practicing on a 1-to-1 scale model of a guitar make me slightly better at a real guitar? Well, yeah, obviously. Anyway, I hope you found some enjoyment regardless. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe so you can check out my next video. Does putting my hand in water make it wet?